Hello and welcome to the billing webinar with CharmHealth. I'm Danny, and I'll be walking you through the billing module today. We will be covering billing, but not claims. If you're interested in learning how to submit claims, please join our claims webinar, which is hosted every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today we'll be covering various topics. We'll start with procedure codes, then move into settings, then we'll look at setting up fee schedules and billing packages. We'll look at how to integrate Bluefin, our merchant processing partner. We'll go over the inventory module, then we'll work through recurring payments and invoicing workflows. We'll finish up with reporting. So let's dive right into things. The first step in setting up your billing module is to create your procedure codes. We're going to jump over into settings by clicking the gear wheel in the top right hand corner. Then we're going to scroll down to the billing section and select procedure codes. You will want to create a procedure code for any item that you want to appear on an invoice. This will be specific line items. So basically, any service that you're going to charge for will have an individual procedure code. To create a procedure code, you simply hit the orange button plus procedure code. In your code, you have the ability to select a code. This can either be a custom code, a CPT code, or anything else that you want to use to designate the service. You will add a description to it. This will be the description that shows up on the line item of your invoice. You'll associate a charge and you'll select a category. For most of your procedures, you will mark them as a procedure. You'll particularly want to have this option selected if you will be submitting claims. You can also add modifiers, which are once again applicable if you will be submitting claims, and you can select a place of service. The most common places of service are either 11 for an office visit or 10 or 2 for telehealth visits. Taxes can be applied to procedure codes. However, for services such as appointments and visits, there typically isn't a tax applied. However, if you use a procedure code to bill out a product, such as a supplement, then you may want to include an applicable tax. Additional details allow you to put additional information that can be viewed by other members of the practice. We're going to go ahead and set up a procedure code that will be used later in this demonstration. We're going to call it a 99204, and we're going to do it as BW for billing webinar. Our description will be a 30 to 45 minute evaluation. We're going to set a charge of $200. We're going to mark it as a procedure, and we're going to leave it as a place of service as an office. We're going to add that. Another way you can add procedure codes is doing them in bulk. If you press the three dot icon over here, you can select import and export codes. So codes can be exported. This will export the entire list of codes that you have built into the system, or you can import codes, which allow you to use a CSV, otherwise known as an Excel spreadsheet, to upload multiple codes at once. You can upload up to 500 procedure codes as long as your file size is less than 10 megabytes. You will need to align your codes in the spreadsheet by this format. So each one of these sections would be a column header. Code, description, category are all required fields as designated by the red um, asterisk in there. Once you upload those codes, they will all be added to procedure codes. You can add the rest of the options on here that are not marked as mandatory are optional, but some of them, such as charge or place of service, you may want to make sure that you have included those in your upload. Once you have created procedure codes, I'll show you a little hack. If you go back to your visit type section, you can link a procedure code to a visit type so it comes up automatically in your uh, billing module. So let's create a visit type. We're just going to call this the billing webinar visit type. We're going to mark it as a video consult. We're going to call it 30 minutes. And instead of pricing a charge, we're going to associate a procedure code with it. So we'll pull up our 99204 and we are going to do our 99204 BW. Then you can see you have this option to use a CPT charge. When you select this, it will carry across this procedure code into your billing module. We're going to add that and we'll use it later. Now we're going to look at some common settings and some areas where you can make adjustments to your billing workflow. Much of this is going to be done in the billing section under billing settings. This is a very long section and most of the options on here are pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to take a look at a couple different features that you may want to address when you first get started. I like to use the Control F, or if you're on a Mac, Command F function to search this page as it's pretty long. So the first thing we're going to look at is invoice automation. So if you enable invoice automation, this will automatically create your invoices after you have an encounter. If you select yes, you'll have the option to select either once the encounter is signed, means once the note is signed, the invoice will be generated, or you can batch them all at the end of the day. There are a couple options to have automation only done when procedures are available for the encounter. So as we looked at in the previous section, linking your procedure codes to your visit type can be very helpful. You can also designate it for specific providers and also set the invoice state. Your invoice provider, the provider on the invoice, can be set to various options. So this is a priority list, or not a priority list, but your options of which encounter or which physician will be listed on each encounter. You can drag and drop these options to rearrange the order that they're submitted. The next place that we're going to look on here is taxes. If you have different tax rates for various products or services, you can add them in taxes. You can see we have a couple taxes already added. If you're just setting up your Charm account, you will not have any taxes written on here. To add a tax, you press the orange button and then add the tax and the tax percentage. Now make sure in this percentage this is without decimals. So if we want to do 8%, we type in 8, not 0.08. And then we can add that in there and the tax is added. The final thing we're going to look at in this billing page is our payment methods. For tracking purposes, you may want to track your payment methods, like whether you're receiving payments as cash, check, card, or any other thing. This is particularly useful if you are using an outside merchant processing service to run your credit card transactions. In this case, we're going to add a payment method, and we're going to call it Stripe. Well, we already have Stripe. It already exists. So that's actually a good thing. If you do have something that already exists, you will get a warning. There are a couple other options where you can edit settings for payments. The next thing we're going to look at is our calendar payments uh, preferences. That is under the billing settings and calendar payment collection. So this area allows you to set certain preferences for auto charging cards on file. As a prerequisite for this, you will need to have Bluefin enabled. We will go over how to enable Bluefin in the next section. In this area, we can select whether or not we auto charge cards on file. If we do, set this to yes, we can choose the visit types that the cards enable for. So if we wanted to do our billing webinar, it will only auto charge for the billing webinar. You can set the payer if you want to have specific insurance companies auto charge. And then you can also choose when you charge the card on file. When the appointment is created, a few hours before the appointment time, or after the encounter is signed. Keep in mind that for this process to work, you will also need to have the card stored on file. There is an option to not charge the card if you have available credits. So that means if the patient has a balance of available credit on their account, it will not charge the card because it will use that available credit to cover the cost of the payment type. You can set your payment preference, so either on the payment charge. Once again, these are in order. So if you wanted to do a fixed amount first, and then if that doesn't turn, then you have a visit type. You can also toggle on and off which one of those options you select. Another thing you can do, and then once again, this also requires Bluefin, is you can auto charge appointments or cards on file for no-shows and missed appointments. If you set this to yes, you can choose your appointment status. So in this case, we'll choose no-show, and we'll say it's a $100 no-show fee. So if on your calendar list view, you change an appointment status to no-show, it will automatically charge the patient at 8 p.m. on the day of the appointment. When you do any of these settings, make sure you come down here and select Save. We're going to undo this really quickly. We're now going to look at two options to adjust your standard pricing, fee schedules and billing packages. Before we begin, we're going to create a category and assign it to a patient. Categories allow you to create markers for different classes of patients. To create one, you come into the patient section and select categories. We're going to create a new category by pushing the orange button and call it the BW sliding scale. We're going to add that. Now we're going to head out to the main section of Charm and assign it to a patient. We're going to search patient names. We're going to select our patient and we're going to go to the dashboard. From there, we're going to go to patient details and select edit patient. Then we're going to assign a category. In this case, the BW sliding scale that we just created. And then we're going to save. Now we're going to head back to the settings page and we're going to go to the billing section. In the billing section, we're going to select fee schedules. Fee schedules allow you to adjust your standard pricing and apply them to different classes of patients. The first step is to enable the fee schedules for practices. Your default fee schedule, in this case the master fee schedule, are the prices that you set when creating a procedure code. It's often best practice not to change this. To create a new fee schedule, we hit the orange button plus fee schedule. We give it a name, we give it a description, and then we assign who the fee schedule applies to. There are several different options. You can make it provider specific, meaning that specific providers will have different prices from the standard prices that you set. In this case, you just select the providers that it applies to, and you can select more than one. You can make it payer specific. So if a patient has a particular insurance, you could set up a fee schedule specific to an insurance carrier like Aetna or UHC. You can make it facility specific if you have multiple facilities in your practice. You can mark it as none if you don't want the fee schedule to automatically apply to any category of patients, or you can make it patient specific, which is what we're going to do in this case. We're going to select the categories to map. In this case, we're going to look for our BW sliding scale. In this case, any patient that is marked with a BW sliding scale category will have the fee schedule that we set here automatically applied to their invoicing. Next, we're going to go to procedure codes. In the procedure code section, there are two areas. The wide area designates your standard pricing for each procedure. This is the price that you set when you created the procedure code. Over in the gray area, you can adjust the standard pricing. You can give it a specific charge. So in this case, if we wanted to mark this as $800 instead of the $1,000, you can also give it a discount with either a percentage or amount. So we could apply a 10% discount, or we could say it's $100 off on this fee schedule. You don't have to adjust every procedure code. So if you want, you can only apply discounts to specific procedure codes and leave the rest with standard pricing. Another way to adjust charges if you want to do everything all at once is you can come up to this autofill procedure code charge or discount. If you select charge, it will put the same charge for every procedure code. This is not really done very often, but you can do it in some cases. More commonly, you'll apply a standard discount across all of the procedure codes. So in this case, since this is a sliding scale, we're going to say the discount is 50%. We're going to hit enter, and then you can see a 50% discount has been applied to every procedure code. This is very useful if you're creating sliding scales or if you have different classes of patients, like veterans, seniors, or students, that you want to apply a standard discount. In that case, you would create a category, as we did, assign it to each patient that the sliding scale would apply to, and then create the sliding scale fee schedule. Now we'll press add. Now anybody who is assigned the BW sliding scale category will have this 50% discount applied to all of their invoicing. The next thing we're going to look at are billing packages. Billing packages allow you to create bundles of services that can be deducted from a bank as a patient uses each of those services. We're going to go to the billing package section and we're going to select new billing package. In this case, we're going to give it a name, which is our billing webinar package. We're going to give it a short name, which we'll call it BW101. We're going to give it a description, billing webinar demo, and then we're going to create a billing code for the package. If you've created, you can create a separate procedure code when you're building up your procedure codes and select them here. If you don't have a separate code for the package, you can select add new. In this case, we're going to call it a BW101. This is our billing webinar package code. We're going to give it a charge of $500. This is going to be the cost of the total package. We're going to assign it as a category package so we can track it in our billing reporting section. And then we're going to select add. After we've done that, we add items to the package. So in this case, we're going to select the 99204 too many nines billing webinar procedure code that we created earlier. And we're going to add a 99215 billing webinar item that we added earlier as well. We're going to assume that the 99204 is an initial visit, and we're going to put 4 follow-up visits in the package. You can see that there's a standard charge and then a prorated charge. Then we're going to select add. You can add products to billing packages as well. And we will get into how adding inventory a little later in this webinar. There are a couple other options that you can select. We're going to go back and edit this package and select view details. There are 2 options that you can set. Either patients are not charged when they use services or items from this package. In this case, invoices will appear with a $0 amount and they will just deduct the item from their package bundle. Or you can select patients are charged for services when they use the package. This will put a dollar amount on the invoice when patients use a package item. We're going to leave this one marked with the first option. Now we're going to go back and we're going to buy a patient or buy a package for a specific patient. To do that, you can go into the billing section in a patient's file. Let's close the watch list here. We'll go to invoices and we'll create a new invoice. We're going to search our package, which is BW1001. We're going to have a code. You can see that this package does not have the discount from the fee schedule that we created earlier. We're going to hit approve. And then now we have an unpaid invoice for this package. There are several ways that you can pay, but we're just going to pay for the package right now. And we're going to pay the invoice due, mark it as a cash payment, and then select add. Now we paid for the package. In the future, when a patient goes to use an item from the package, we go here and create invoices. We'll do a new invoice and the package item should show. Now that a patient has a package on their account, you'll see that the package is listed here. If you click the little plus icon, you can see the details of the package and how many of each visit type they have left. And in this case, you can see we have one item of the 99204, and we have 4 sessions of the 215 code. We're going to bill the 99204. Select that. You can see here that there's a $0 charge because it is part of the package. We're going to hit approve, and the package and the invoice is already marked as paid because it's part of the package. That covers it for billing packages and fee schedules. If you want to process cards through Charm, you can sign up with our merchant processing partner, Bluefin. To do that, you're going to first come over to the add-ons page. Keep in mind that we already have an active Bluefin account on this demo account. So some of what you see here will be slightly different than what you'll actually encounter, but the steps remain the same. To start, go to the add-ons page by clicking the plug icon in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. This will take you to our add-ons page. You'll go over to the Bluefin Payment Gateway and select this option. When you do this, which we will be taken to the Bluefin section of the billing settings page, but when you initially do that, you will be prompted to confirm your email address or enter a new email address that you would prefer contact information to be sent to. And Bluefin will send you information and instructions on how to set up your account. Once you have your Bluefin account created, you can come into the Bluefin section under the billing module or the billing section and add your Bluefin account. To do that, you select plus Bluefin beneficiary. It will give you instructions at the top to go to your PayConnects account, which it provides a link to log in. You will enter your login credentials, and then you'll navigate to settings, manage settings. This will give you your account number and API access key, which you can just copy and paste into this section. The beneficiary name can be anything you want. It's just a nickname for the account. So if we were creating one now, we could call it the billing webinar account. I don't have an account number or API access key that's separate from what we're already using, so we'll leave those blank. You can also apply Bluefin to different facilities. You would simply hit add. It would check the account number and API access key to make sure that they match. And if everything is correct, you will have the account added to your Charm account and you'll be able to process cards. There are also a couple or a little bit of information that is displayed on this page: total cards on file and total active recurring payments on file. If you're using a PAX device, this could be a card reader that either scans cards or accepts swipes. You can add your PAX device here. By clicking this, you'll enter your device name and the serial number. You will plug it in, and then the system will recognize the device and connect it to the system. If you have any issues with either connecting a PAX device or your beneficiary name, you can reach out to Bluefin support, which you can access by Googling bluefin.com/support. There will be several options on here. Just scroll down and you can go to the technical support option. Sorry for all the pop-ups, but right here, 1-800-675-6573, extension 2. If you have any issues with running your card, you can also give our support line a call and we will try and troubleshoot it if we can. If you sell physical products such as supplements, Charm has an inventory tracking system that you can utilize. To manage your inventory, go to the inventory section. All of your inventory will be listed here. In this case, we're going to add an item to the inventory list. To do that, you can press the plus inventory button. This will take you to a dialog box. There are several required fields, but the rest of the information is optional. So in this case, we're going to create it as a supplement. We're going to call this a creatine creatine complex. You can give it a product ID. This is an internal code that Charm can recognize. So we're going to call it CRE 1000. Trade name, if there's a specific trade name for it. You can select a strength. So in this case, we're going to do 5 and milligrams or 5 grams. You can select a route or a dose form. You can also apply taxes if any taxes apply, such as sales tax. You can mark when the stock was received. You can select a supplier. If you do not have a supplier listed, you can add a supplier. If you want to track the batch number, you can do that as well, along with the expiration date. The quantity is the total number of units you received. So in this case, we'll say 100 bottles. You can mark a cost price per item. So say it's $25 per bottle and set a retail price per item. This is what will show up on your invoice. We're going to say $50 in this case. You can add other information such as the manufacturer, storage location, if you stock it in a certain place in your facility, a pack size. In this case, maybe a pack has 2 bottles, and a reference number. You can also set a reorder level. This will give you a warning when your stock falls below this reorder level. So in this case, we're going to say 10 bottles, and our order quantity for new orders is always going to be $100. We're going to add this to inventory. If you have multiple items to add to your inventory list, you have a couple different options. You can use the bulk inventory button, and this will give you the same options that we just looked at on the previous screen, but will allow you to add multiple items of inventory in at one time. The other way that you can import multiple items of inventory is to use our bulk import option. This takes a CSV laid out with these column names over here and allows you to upload them all in one item. This is useful if you already are tracking your inventory and you can create a spreadsheet of all of your current items. You have several options. You can import to your store or multiple stores, import to a specific category or multiple categories, select the category if you're doing it into a specific category, and you select the CSV. There is a sample CSV that can be downloaded that you can use as reference as you build out your spreadsheet. Oh, we're going to hit X over here. I'm sorry. And then now we're going to go and add an item in inventory to a patient's chart. We're going to search for a demo patient. We're going to go to their dashboard and we're going to create an invoice and sell them one item of creatine. We'll select new invoice. Then down here, we'll go to the product section. We're going to select creatine and select the creatine complex. You can assign multiple items. Say they purchased 2 bottles. Once you hit that, it will adjust the total price for the invoice. We're going to approve it, and then we're going to pay it very quickly to keep this account clean. We're going to add payment. We're going to select pay invoice due. We're going to say that this was done with a Square transaction. So now that inventory has been added and paid for by the patient. If we come back to the inventory section, we can look at the reports specific to inventory. There are several reports. We can look at the received list report. This will show all products received within a certain time period that you set using the filters. You can see here's our creatine complex. We received it on the 21st and we received 100 units. Because we listed a cost per item, you'll get a total cost for the shipment. We'll also show the available quantity. If you recall, we added 100 units, but because we've already sold 2, we have 98 units remaining. Another useful report is a stock flow report. This shows a list of received and uh, dispensed units over time. So you can see we've received 100 units, we've dispensed 2 units, and we have 100 left. Our inventory report by product gives us details for each product within our catalog. See the available quantity, any reorder level that you set, the order quantity, the latest cost per unit, the latest retail price, and other information related to the product. If you would like to see different columns in here, you can go ahead and press the gear wheel button. This will allow you to add updated columns. So we could add tax over here, and now that will show in our report. Another useful order report is the inventory report. This will show all of the inventory available in the product. It's very similar to the other inventory report that we looked at. You can also check the expiration dates. You can check details on expired, damaged, or returned products. If you're using our e-commerce store, you can also use our e-commerce order list and view orders that have been submitted from your store. That's it for inventory. We're now going to work through several billing workflows. The first thing we're going to do to start is create an encounter so that we have a visit over which we can do billing operations on. So as you've seen, I've selected a patient and then I'm going to press plus encounter. For the visit type, we're going to select the billing webinar that we previously linked a procedure code to. You're going to hit create, and then that will open up the Charting 360 view. We're going to leave this basically blank. We'll put something in the chief complaints section using quick text. You can see if we go up to procedure codes here, let's save that very quickly. It already has the procedure code that we linked to this visit type. We go back to chart notes. One thing that you'll want to do in every encounter is make sure that you have diagnosis codes added. If you do not add diagnosis codes during an encounter, they will not reflect in either claims or superbills. So in this case, we're going to add a diagnosis code from our common psych ICD-10 template. We're going to add post-traumatic stress disorder and select add. In a normal encounter, you would fill in all of your information, but for now, we're just going to sign this. Once completed, there are two places that you can do billing operations, either from the billing module by going across the generate bills, invoices, receipts sections, or you can work out of a patient's file. I prefer to do that for most actions to make sure that I'm only making billing changes specific to the patient that I want to work with. So once you enter their file, you can go to the billing section. In the billing section, we start in generate bills. You can see we have the May 21st encounter for the billing webinar. The first step in your billing workflows is to select the three dots and select new invoice. This will allow you to edit the invoice for the encounter. You can see we already have a code linked because it was associated with the visit type. You can see also, if you recall, this patient is on the sliding scale fee schedule. So a 50% discount has already been applied to meet the fee schedule. You can add additional items or line items to the invoice by selecting add more lines and either searching specific codes, or you can use the choose from master list, and that will give you a list of all procedure codes that you have entered in the system. We could search BW. Let's go 99204. We can see the codes that we have put in earlier. You can also add products to your invoice. So let's assume that they sold another bottle of the creatine complex that we created earlier when we were in the billing or in the inventory module. We're now going to approve this invoice. If you have enabled invoice automation in the settings, you will automatically have your invoice carried into the invoice section. There will be no need to generate a new invoice from the generate bills section. Just keep in mind, for invoice automation to work smoothly, you should associate procedure codes with your visit types so they are automatically populated in your billing module. You can see here we have an unpaid invoice. There are several things that we can do from here. We can click the three dots and add a payment. Before we add a payment, we're going to send the invoice. Sending invoice allows you to send the invoice to either the PHR email or if you have a cell phone number associated with the patient as a text message. If you have Bluefin enabled, you can send a payment link that will allow the patient to pay the invoice directly from the email. You'll see down here there are various details on where the invoice or where the message comes from, the recipient address, the subject line, and the different attachments that are included. In this case, by default, we have the super bill attachment being sent. You can view the attachment by clicking the view button. This will show you the attachment, and you can see we have the line item and we have the ICD-10 code that we added to the encounter. You can edit the body of the note, but one thing we do recommend is do not change this notes and example section. All invoices are password protected, so you want to leave this in place so that patients understand the format that they need to enter their password. You also do not want to adjust the payment URL if you are sending the payment link, because a snippet of words gets replaced with the actual payment link. If you do want to make edits, we suggest keeping it to this section right up here. After you're done, you can select, we're going to send to PHR. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have a PHR active. We're going to send it to email and then select send. We'll get a confirmation message that the invoice has been successfully sent. The next thing we're going to do, or we can do, is we can edit the invoice if we need to make any changes, or we can add a payment. When adding a payment, a quick option to do is to select the pay invoice due amount up here. You can also pay products in full as well if you want to just do the products. In this case, we're going to do the pay invoice due. You can select the payment method to track the methods of payment for each of the payments that you receive, which we'll look at in the reporting section after this section. If you have Bluefin enabled, you can select Use Payment Gateway. In that case, you will either be able to swipe the card or use an EMV chip reader if you have a connected PACS device. If you do not, you can select Key In and enter the details for the card information for the client. If you have a card stored on file, there will be an option on this left-hand side to use the card stored on file. If this is the first time that you've run a card for the patient, you have the option down here to store the card details on file for later use. We're going to turn off the payment gateway and mark this as a cash payment. You can see that the different line items have had their payments applied to them. You can add custom reference numbers if you want to track your payments in any other manner. I'm going to add that. Now this invoice is marked as paid. We're going to do something else with this. Suppose a patient returns an item. In this case, we'll say the inventory that she purchased. We can do the return items credit note option. In this case, we're going to delete off the encounter so we only have the creatine listed. We can hit return items. Inventory has returned and the inventory is adjusted. So in this case, what that means is when we assign this inventory product, it deducted from our available inventory. This has added it back. So we can close this now. If we look, this inventory amount is still marked as paid, and we see an inventory item has been closed out here. If we go to receipts, we'll see we now have an unused payment of $50, which reflects the total for the inventory product that we purchased. We can hit the three dots here and select payment refund. We can enter the details and then select payment refund. If the payment was made through Bluefin, this screen will allow you to credit the card or credit the payment back to the patient's card. And payment refund, now it's marked and a refund amount is now marked. This will reflect in the billing reporting section. Another thing that you can do in the billing workflows is add a recurring payment. This is only available if you have Bluefin selected. To add a recurring payment, you go to the Receipts section and select Recurring Payment. Any current recurring payments that have been set up on the client's account will be visible here. To add a new recurring payment, you add the Plus Recurring Payments button. This will allow you to select the card on file. Once again, if you have a card on file, you will be given that as an option to charge. If you do not have a card on file for the client, you can enter the details the same manner we discussed earlier, either a swipe or a chip reader if you have a PAX device, or by keying it in. After keying in the details, you select the recurring payment amount. So in this case, we'll say $100. You then select the recurring payment schedule. We have several options, but the most common is monthly. You select a start date and you give a recurring count. So if we wanted to do 12 annual payments, we would select 12. If you leave this blank, the recurring payment will continue without ending. This may be good if you have long-term subscription plans. You can add notes for the recurring payment. You then have options on where to apply the payment. You can either apply the payment to an existing invoice. So a good example of this is if you sell a package, but do not list a payment for it initially, you can use a recurring payment to break the total cost of that package into several monthly installments, for instance. In this case, you would select apply to a specific invoice, and then you would select the invoice number that references a specific invoice that you want it to be applied to. The other option you have is to create um, to apply to outstanding invoices. You can also create a new invoice for every payment that's collected. In this case, let's say we have a monthly 99215 package or visit that we see. We select the procedure code that will be billed, and every time this recurring payment processes, a new invoice will be created with this 99215 code listed as a line item. Once you're finished, you can add recurring payment. Please note if you're adding a new card on the recurring payment section, the system will first check to see if the card is valid. If it does not a valid card, it will give you an error message and you'll have to correct the details. We've looked at all the invoice workflows from a particular patient's workflow. As I mentioned, you can do all of this in the billing section. The workflow is generally the same. In the generate bills section, you can create new invoices. In the invoices section, you can both see all the invoices for the practice as well as do things like add payment. You also have options on here to select multiple invoices and send them if you want to send a payment invoice to multiple recipients. Your recurring payment history and everything you have set up, you can see we have several recurring payments set up for the practice. They've all been canceled because this is a demo account. We don't have a live Bluefin uh, connection, but you'll be able to see this. If there are any rejections for a recurring payment, which you will get a status as error or rejected, you can select the item and then send a link to update the card on file. That's it, and we'll finish up with reports. Charm offers a robust reporting package for all of your billing needs. To access these, go to the billing section and then select reports. Reports are grouped into various categories. We will mostly be working with list reports. List reports show a list of all items related to that category. So we have invoice lists, receipt lists, and claims lists. The claims list reporting is outside of the purview of this recording. If you're more interested in that, please visit our claims webinar every Thursday. We're going to start in the receipts list or the invoices list. Invoices list will show a list of all invoices for the time period that you set. Most reporting modules have filters that you can set. You can set the time, you can select the type of invoice, whether it's by the encounter date, invoice added date, or the invoice date, We're going to look at this quarter just to give us a little bit more information. You can also set custom parameters if you want to look at a specific period of dates. Other filter options include group bys as well as individual filters. Before we adjust filters, let's take a look at the raw report. So as you can see, this lists out patient names as well as their invoice dates, the invoice amount, whether any payment has been collected, whether there's been any insurance payments. We'll also show the procedure total, item payment totals, the status, the provider, payer name, who it was generated by, and whether or not it was sent for collection. If there are any categories applied to the patient, such as our BW sliding scale that we worked on earlier, they will also be listed. You can also control what columns are visible by clicking this gear wheel icon right here. In this case, the columns on the right in yellow are included in the report. If you want to add additional columns, such as date of birth, we can drag and drop those over there. If you want to remove a column, you can always select the trash can icon. We're going to update to include the date of birth. Your group by section allows you to group the reports by specific features. So in this case, we're going to group by provider and select show report. Now our invoice list is grouped by the number of providers. It will show the total amounts of invoices for the time period that you set. You can see that Dr. Angela Smith has had about $19,000 of invoices and has collected about just shy of $10,000 of payments. Anytime you see blue text, this allows you to drill down to see specific details for that grouping. So if we were to select this, we'll show all invoices related to Dr. Smith with the information that we looked at earlier. We're going to remove the grouping, and then we're going to look at individual filters. So in this case, we could look for an invoice type, and we can select either invoice or credit note. We're going to leave it as invoice. And we're also going to look at this by the provider name. So this will be similar to the grouping provider, but allow us to select an individual provider. Just as a note for the multiple filter criteria, if you select and, both criteria need to be met for that report or for the data to be returned. If you select or, either of the invoice criteria, any data that matches either of the two search criteria will be returned. We're going to leave this as and take a look at this report. These are all services that have been provided by Dr. Angela Smith for the time period that we looked at. If you have set specific filter criteria and you want to save them for later use, you can save as a custom report. These are accessible in the custom report section. So any report that has been saved can be referenced later. We're going to take a quick look at the receipts list. This is similar to the invoice list, except it only shows receipts that have been made. So you can see we have the two payments for eFortega that we made earlier in the webinar. It also lists the payment method, any refund amounts, payment providers, whether or not they have active insurance, the facility codes, any patient categories that they received, any type, as well as any referral source. Once again, you can control the columns that are visible in the report by selecting the gear wheel icon. You also have the same grouping criteria that you can look at to filter your data. If you want to export any of the reports, you can export them using the export as CSV. This is useful if you're very skilled in Excel to just pull raw data and do your manipulations in Excel. You can also look at a couple other types of reports. We're going to look at the invoices by provider. This is very similar to grouping invoices by the provider name on an invoice list. Once again, we have the blue text that can be drilled down. If you want to set specific criteria and save as a custom report, you do have that option. You can also decide whether or not to include inactive patients in your report. Another report that's useful is the AR aging report by patient. This will show patients with outstanding balance due. You can see some of the patients in our demo account have outstanding balances over 120 days. Once again, with this blue text, you can drill down to see the specific invoices for that particular client, as well as their statuses, the invoice amount, and any payment that has been received. Another useful report is the receipts by payment method. If you're collecting receipts or collecting payment through various payment methods, this will break down how you are receiving payment. So in this case, you can see we have several different payment methods that have been used in the reporting period, which is this month. If we look at this quarter, we'll get more data. Once again, with the blue text, you can drill down to look at specific details for each payment method. So if we were to look at Square, for instance, we can see all of the payments as well as the patients and the details for the payments that were made in the reporting time period. As with all of the reports, you can save custom reports, export as CSV, and control which columns are visible in the report. Another useful list, if you want to see the total procedures that have been made, you can look at procedure list. This will list out the individual procedures for each patient. Once again, you can group by. So if we were to select patient name, we could show the report, and then it would group the procedures by the patient names. Once again, you can always drill down using the blue text. So let's save custom reports, export, and select your custom columns. If you map categories to different procedures, you can view the various categories using the procedures by category report. Once again, we see most of the procedures that have been done in the reporting period are listed as procedure. We have sold some packages, and you can see the total charge here. Once again, if we drill down, we can see the packages that were sold. Here's the BW 1001, the billing webinar package that we sold to Eve Ortega. You can see that there has been a total charge after discount, whether it's been billed to insurance, whether a payment has been made or not, as well as if there are any write-offs or procedures due. Anytime you see a patient name, you could drill into their specific file. You can also look at AR aging reports by providers, payment collection by providers, as well as any tax reports if you are collecting taxes for inventories. So they can be based on the invoice or the collection. If you are running inventory, you can see your inventory sales list as well. This is separate from the inventory reporting we looked at earlier, but you can see we have here the creatine complex that we sold to Eve Ortega earlier in the webinar. You can see that all payment discounts have been made, and it will mark your net profit and loss. This is a good way to get an idea of what your total revenue and cost is for any procedures that you are selling. You can see the total cost of goods sold and the sales total as well right at the top. Once again, you have filter options to control the specifics of the data that you see. The final package that we'll look at is a billing packages sold report. We can check this and see the billing packages that we've sold in the time period. Once again, you can view the package details, you can see the package period, as well as who accessed the package. There is also filtering on this level if you are selling many packages. The final report we'll look at are their payment gateway reports. You can check the patient card on file report, which we have, which is blank for this time period. Let's look at this year. We may not have data in this report because we do not have an active Bluefin connection on this demo account, but this would show all the patient cards on file. You can also look at a recurring profile report, which will show all of your recurring payments, whether they have been successful. Let's check the previous year just to see if we have any data in there. No, we don't have payment, but you can see the breakdown of the fields that will typically be provided in this report. That's it for reports. The best way to get to familiarize yourselves with support is to get in and play around with them. If you have any questions, you can reach out to the support line and we'd be happy to walk you through the various reporting modules. Thank you for attending our webinar. For additional questions, you can reach out to 855-571-5557, or you can email support@charmhealth.com. We'd be happy to help you. Thank you for attending this webinar once again, and we'd like to wish you a happy rest of your day.